I choose ideas because they bring our hearts back home. Hearts back home, the place I know, the place I know.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us. I am Dr. Kevin Brown, the moderator of this webinar. I am based in the UK. So for me, it's certainly late afternoon and looking outside, a dark afternoon as we enter the winter months. I wanted to welcome you and thank you for joining this webinar, which is being hosted by the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council Partnerships Group in association with Integrated Diaspora Services Limited. And we have quite a program for you today, where we'll be looking at the whole topic of how can we collaborate in faith. And the wider question is how can Jamaica's sustainable development goals be achieved through faith-based partnerships with the diaspora? So today we want to explore how can faith institutions, in particular the church, participate more in nation building? How can faith leaders and faith institutions contribute to Jamaica's national development agenda? And we know that the church is one of the largest institutions in the country, but it's also a very large and important institution amongst the diaspora the world over, right? So we think that it's now time to have a conversation around how the faith institutions, the church in particular, can really get hands-on in nation building. So today's webinar is not just about talking. We will have, of course, brief presentations by a number of speakers, but we will also have a workshop. So for those participants who are busy joining, you will be asked to join a workshop halfway through the webinar. And in these workshops, you will be discussing the topic at hand and how, as to how we can achieve this noble objective. And so we're hoping that at the end of this webinar, we will have practical, tangible outcomes with respect to constructive recommendations and that we can take forward. You'll be hearing from Bishop Ransford Jones, who is the faith-based leader on the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council, and he will be taking those recommendations and turning them into an action plan for us to use as an agenda to move things forward. So today is actually a working meeting. So if you weren't aware of that, you've been told you've come here to do some work for sure, so we can make Jamaica a better place in the future. We have a number of speakers today. You'll be hearing from a number of key government leaders as well as faith leaders. I want to welcome Senator Leslie Campbell, Minister of State responsible for the diaspora in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. I also wish to welcome Her Excellency Sharon Miller, Jamaica High Commissioner in Canada. I also want to recognize Reverend Fletcher, our keynote speaker, along with several other featured speakers who I will be introducing as we go along. So I hope you are all looking forward to the webinar as much as I am, because certainly it will be one that I think will be quite interesting and informative. So I'm gonna start by just briefly introducing the Global Jamaica Diaspora Partnerships Working Group. And just to let you know who we are as one of the key organizers of this event. And then I'll be passing you to Bishop Ransford Jones to say the opening prayer and also to give his brief remarks as well. In fact, I think it should be the other way around. Let's have the opening prayer. Let's get things off properly. So Bishop Jones, can I ask you to give your opening prayer first? Right. And then I will talk about the partnerships group afterwards.
All right, Dr. Brown, thank you. Thank you so much. Let us pray, everyone. Eternal Father, we thank you for this day, for your grace and for your mercy. Thank you that you have kept and blessed our land, and you have guided us with your mighty hand. We are grateful for the blessings and opportunities in spite of the difficulties and challenges that we have. Thank you for the spirit and the resilience and the tenacity of our people. For those in the diaspora whose heart and actions still cling to the perennial and proverbial umbilical cord that links and joins us together. Many of us have been blessed with the capacities and abilities and influences like Nehemiah to collaborate to help build the walls of Jamaica. May this gathering and collaboration in faith today inspire, motivate, and propel us into a new era of action for sustainable change and development, because we know that faith without works is dead. Please stir our response to duty call. Give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and the spirit of unity to collaborate for this noble cause. Will you bless these proceedings today and everyone who participate in it? For we ask these mercies through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bishop Jones. So I will now just do a brief introduction of the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council Partnerships Working Group, and then we will take from there. So I'm just going to launch a brief presentation. I've got a couple of slides. We can go from there. Okay, so today's webinar is being hosted by the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council Partnerships Working Group in association with the Integrated Diaspora Services, who you'll hear from shortly as well. So what is this working group? So the working group is actually part of what's called the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council, which is a consultative body that sits in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. It's chaired by Senator Leslie Campbell, the Minister of State for Diaspora. And it's a council made up of representatives from across the globe. So the UK has 2 representatives. I am one of the UK reps for the UK North, and we have Nathaniel Pete, who represents the South. And likewise, in the other major diaspora regions like America and Canada, you have regional reps there as well. But we also draw representation from the Asia Pacific, South America, Africa, the Caribbean, as well as we have members who are specialist members who are focused on topics such as development, sports and culture, education, and so on. So it's a wide-ranging council that's actually part of the governance structure that comes out of the National Diaspora Policy. Now, I chair the Partnerships Working Group. There are a number of working groups on the council. So we're not just there to have meetings, but we've actually been asked to deliver tangible outcomes. So there are 5 groups: People, Planet, Prosperity, Peace, and Partnerships. And I chair the Partnerships Group who are hosting this event. The aim of the Partnerships Working Group is to, as it says, strengthen and encourage deeper, more meaningful partnerships between the diaspora and a range of stakeholders. So that includes ministries, government departments and agencies, international partners, of course, the diaspora, the private sector, NGOs, and stakeholders involved in media, sports, arts, and culture. So it's quite a huge remit for this working group, but we have certainly taken up the challenge to try and make sure that we accomplish our terms of reference. So who's on the Partnerships Working Group? Well, you have myself as the chair. We also have on the group Bishop Ransford Jones. He's also the faith-based representative on the wider Global Jamaica Diaspora Council, and he resides in Canada. We have Mrs. Elizabeth Mullins-Smith, who is also on the council. She's the Development Issues Rep, and she resides in the UK. We have Dr. Nicolene Johnson, who represents the Asia Pacific region on the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council. She resides in China. We have Ms. Kashane Denton, who is the chair of the Global Jamaica Diaspora Youth Council, and she resides in Canada. we have Dr. Kim Marie Spence, who is the Arts, Sports and Culture Rep on the council, and she resides in Ireland. We also have secretarial and administrative support from the Diaspora Affairs Department with Mr. Lloyd Wilkes, the Director of the Diaspora Affairs Department in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, sitting on our working group, and he resides in Jamaica. We have also co-opted 2 strategic partners. One of them is Integrated Diaspora Services, who are co-hosting this webinar. And we also have a young man called Mr. Jason Scott, who is our digital technology advisor. So these individuals make up the partnerships working group. I just want to quickly talk about 2 main flagship programs that we are currently progressing, and I'd like it to make you aware of them. So the first one is the Jamaica Diaspora Partnerships Ihub, and this is an interactive online platform that we're developing to enable effective and sustainable diaspora engagement. The Jamaican diaspora is almost 3 million people strong. It's a global population, and the only way really of engaging everyone is going to be through some sort of online platform. So the aim of this project is to develop such a platform, but it's not just going to be a passive website. We're aiming for it to be engaging and interactive, and for you to be able to not only meet stakeholders in Jamaica, but also your fellow diaspora members across regions. So there'll be more information coming out on that, but that is one of our main projects, which is being developed with support from the IOM and also working closely with PIOJ and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade rather. The other one of our main projects that we're focusing on is Jamaica Birthright program, which aims to reconnect the diaspora. So we're targeting young people, in quotes, and trying to get them to reconnect with the country. So we have a little subgroup within our working group that's focused on that. And we're partnering with Mrs. Caroline Mahfood from Grace Kennedy Foundation to kick off this very ambitious project, which is to get our people engaged with the country. How do we aim to do that? Well, the idea is to actually take them to Jamaica, and we are going to roll that out across, we have actually 5 programs or pillars on the screen. You're seeing 4 at the moment, but there is a 5th one. And the aim is that through these various programs, we want to bring home young Jamaicans, especially those born overseas who've not visited the country before. And so there are a whole raft of opportunities there, including internships, multi-faith programs, which we need to discuss with you faith leaders, but also fellowship programs and so on. So again, this is something that is going to be rolled out pretty soon. So I'm going to stop there, but if anyone has any questions or any more, need more information, my email address is on the screen. Please do get in touch. But that is the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council Partnerships Working Group. As I said, we are doing this webinar in partnership with Integrated Diaspora Services, and you'll hear from Nordia T, the CEO, shortly. So now I want to ask my dear friend, Bishop Jones, Bishop Ransford Jones, the faith-based sector lead on the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council, to also give his opening remarks, words of welcome, and also to talk more about his role on the council. Bishop?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Brown, our astute and fearless leader, we call him. It's great to be working with him over this last little while. But once again, we certainly want to welcome each and every one of you who have joined us today on this very, very special inaugural faith-based webinar. We certainly want to recognize all our very special guests. I know that Dr. Brown already mentioned our Minister of State, Trade and Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Leslie Campbell, Mr. Lloyd Wilkes, Director of Diaspora Affairs Department, our Canadian High Commissioner, Her Excellency Sharon Miller, all of the diplomats and missions representatives from around the world who have joined us, the esteemed clergy who is here with us, our special featured guests and moderators, Integrated Diaspora Services, and all of UNO who have come to join us today. Welcome. Thank you for being here with us. All right, just want to share a little bit about the our diaspora services here that we have, the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council. It's a mechanism geared at facilitating more effective engagement between Jamaica and the diaspora. The council was established in 2020. It reflects inclusivity, expansion, and collaboration among and within the Jamaica diaspora, and reinforces the critical partnership between Jamaica and its diaspora for national development. The concept of the Diaspora Council evolved out of the discussion with the former Diaspora Advisory Board members and other stakeholders, including the Economic Growth Council. We agree that there needed to be an expansion of our engagement within the diaspora to include new and emerging regions where Jamaicans reside. The council is an advisory and a consultative body that will create pathways for increased engagement with the diaspora in Jamaica. The faith-based sector is a critical and dynamic component to the GJDC. We know that our traditions of religion and religious associations in Jamaica is a staple of who we are. The rich heritage of our churches and religious institutions have placed us in an enviable position, and the place that we have more churches on a per capita basis than any other place. I would say maybe except at Gun Hill Road in the Bronx. We are one of the greatest exporter of ministers and religious entities. We want to capitalize on the vast array of the faith-based entities, expertise, and the wealth of potential to collaborate for Jamaica's sustainable development. With our faith inspired by tangible actions, we can play a big part in the welfare of Jamaica's sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you for your words of welcome, and also for expanding on the work of the council and your role in particular. So just to reiterate, if you didn't get what is Bishop Jones's role on the council? Well, he is there to represent all faiths. In terms of any issues within the diaspora, he's your voice, right? And he's there to advise the minister and the government of Jamaica on faith issues. So, do make sure that, make yourself acquainted with Bishop Jones, because he's your representative on the council, there to take your views to the minister and the government of Jamaica. Next, we will be hearing from Her Excellency Sharon Miller, Jamaica High Commissioner in Canada. Her Excellency Sharon Miller has been in the Foreign Service for 3.5 decades. She has held several roles, including ambassador to Brazil, the Republic of Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, and Uruguay. She has also performed several duties within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, including Undersecretary, Multilateral Affairs Division on several occasions. She was a director for the Economic Affairs Department. She also performed duties as Undersecretary and Director in other areas of the ministry as well. She has represented Jamaica in several international conferences and workshops, including being the head of delegation at the UN Conference on South-South Cooperation. Ambassador Miller has held membership in various national committees, including the Sustainable Development Goals Planning Committee, National Core Group for the Sustainable Development Goals, and a whole range of other committees as well. She is a graduate of the University of the West Indies. She holds a Bachelor's of Science in Public Administration, and has done graduate work in development studies. She also is multilingual, having intermediate level Portuguese as one of the strings to her bow, and she also speaks basic French and Spanish. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us warmly welcome Ambassador Sharon Miller, Jamaica High Commissioner to Canada. Ambassador.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Honorable Minister, Senator Leslie Campbell, representatives of Jamaica, members of the clergy, fellow presenters, Jamaicans all. Greetings from Ottawa. With just about 9 years to realize the objectives of Agenda 2030 to shape the future we want, many countries have formulated plans to ensure that the global vision is achieved. Jamaica, as you were reminded earlier, through Vision 2030, with its over 80% alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals, is one such. The SDGs, as the goals are commonly known, and we are all aware, provides a blueprint on equitably sharing planetary resources to enable each country, regardless of its level of development, to partake in the global initiative to protect people, the planet, increase prosperity, and attain peace through effective and sustainable partnerships. It is a whole of society approach to sustainable development that protects the right of generations yet unborn to a healthy natural environment, peace, security, and prosperity in their lifetimes. While we recognize that the goals are aspirational, intergovernmental and inter-country partnerships are key to ensuring that there is acceptance of our responsibility to safeguard the future and a willingness to secure the achievement of the goals. With this in mind, the Jamaican faith-based community, with its multiple avenues of influence, and our global diaspora network, in my mind, are natural allies to work towards Jamaica's achievement of the SDGs. Of one thing that as Jamaicans we are certain is the important role played over the years by our community of faith and the diaspora in nation building. The ripple effects on community development of support to education, healthcare, and other social intervention programs are undeniable. A partnership such as this should produce much needed synergy, which is crucial to ensure that we recover from COVID-19, our rebuilding efforts have at their core attaining the SDGs. The ambition to transform our world, to make our Jamaica a place where access to the fundamentals of life is guaranteed, where no one is left behind, and the quality of life, whether on land or underwater, is protected, resides in our hands. I commend your initiative in recognizing the power of a partnership such as this. Your collaboration, based on the strength of your groups, is no doubt one destined for success. I look forward to the outcome of this panel discussion and workshop and stand willing to assist as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Miller. Thank you. We're happy to hear of your committed support, and we look forward to working with you on this initiative. So now it's time to hear from your minister, the Diaspora Minister, Minister of State, Senator, the Honorable Leslie Campbell, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. Beyond politics, Minister Campbell is actually a British-trained barrister and attorney at law, practicing in Jamaica since 1994. His area of specialty is insurance. Minister Campbell has served as a member of the Council of the Jamaican Bar Association and was a former president of the Advocates Association of Jamaica. He's also served on several boards, such as chairman of the National Health Fund and member of the board of Petrojam Limited and other commissions as well. He was an elected parliamentarian for Northeast St. Catherine in 2016, where he served until August 2020. And whilst he was a parliamentarian, he also served as a minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation and the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture, and Fisheries. Of course, today he sits in the Senate, and as I said earlier, is the Minister of State responsible for the diaspora. Help me to welcome Senator the Honorable Leslie Campbell.
Dr. Brown, the team lead for Partnership Working Group and moderator from the United Kingdom. Reverend Bruce Fletcher, head of the Christian Diaspora Movement and guest speaker. Bishop Ransford Jones, convener of this event and member of the Partnership Working Group from Canada. Bishop Wilton Cowell from the UK. Bishop Glenford Duffus from Canada. Bishop Dr. Roy Notice, Jamaica. Bishop Neville Owens, Jamaica. The Reverend Andrew Bennett from the United States. Dr. Stephanie Fletcher, Larty from Australia. Miss Beverly Johnson from the UK. Dr. Sharon Wiles from the USA. Dr. Kay Morris from Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, it's good afternoon. I'm pleased to extend greetings to you on what is a very sunny day in Jamaica, and do so in the hope that you are all experiencing good health and well-being. I would like to express my gratitude to the Partnership Working Group for organizing yet another engaging activity aimed at creating greater awareness about the activities of the working group, but more particularly advancing critical components of the National Diaspora Policy. Some of you may already be aware of the webinar, which was recently hosted by the group, focusing on the Asia-Pacific area and dealing with doing business in Jamaica. I would like to use this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Nicolene Johnson, who was the lead on that initiative, and her team for a job well done. Ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that our history is replete with examples of how faith-based organizations have contributed to our individual and collective growth, development, and well-being over the years. Jamaica has a long and proud history of the remarkable contributions of faith-based organizations in our moral, cultural, and educational growth. And where we are today is because of these fundamental cornerstones which have been laid by these organizations. Over the years, and as Jamaicans migrated, they took with them their faith and quickly established religious and spiritual organizations, which continued to provide the support they had grown accustomed to in Jamaica. This, of course, was especially important in a context where they were in a new environment that oftentimes required quick assimilation, which was not always easy to accomplish. The church was a ready and accessible refuge and fortress. The government of Jamaica has always been conscious of the value of this segment of our society, including those which are located overseas. The truth is, these institutions are contributing significant support to various communities, schools, clinics, and hospitals across the island. In recognition of this collaboration and partnership, faith-based institutions were invited among MDAs, private sector, NGOs, academia, and a wide cross-section of the diaspora to participate in the first Jamaica Diaspora Symposium that was convened in Kingston in 2003. In fact, at the very first biennial Jamaica Diaspora Conference hosted in 2004, and at successive conferences held up to 2011, there was a significant discourse and consultations on how faith-based institutions could advance the development of Jamaica. It is important to note that the Christian Diaspora Movement, which later grew into a Christian Diaspora Conference by 2016, had its genesis at the second biennial Jamaica Diaspora Conference in 2006. The initial Christian Diaspora Conference was headed by Reverend Bruce Fletcher, who is here today, still actively engaging with our Jamaican family. This movement has been supported from the outset by a contingent of clergymen and women who made tremendous contributions and sacrifices to make it happen. Ladies and gentlemen, the The Jamaican Diaspora Day of Prayer and Fasting, JDOP, was conceived by members of the clergy in New York in 2004. The initiative attracted the attention and support of other clergymen and women from the United Kingdom, Canada, and indeed Jamaica. The resulting international steering committee, which was set up to manage the process, has been ably supported by overseas missions in New York, Miami, Toronto, Ottawa, and London, which have been rendering assistance to galvanize the Jamaican community to support this annual event. All of this has happened in a context where the government has designed, in consultation with members of the Jamaican diaspora and several other stakeholders, mechanisms for more effective engagement of the diaspora. One such mechanism is, of course, the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council, which is a critical component of the National Diaspora Policy. The Global Jamaica Diaspora Council has a membership of 28 members spread across the globe and was structured to ensure greater access by and the inclusivity of the diaspora in matters relating to diaspora engagement. The Global Jamaica Diaspora Council was also designed to advance the priorities of the government of Jamaica and to promote engagement among the diaspora, and is supported by a work program specifically aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals, Jamaica's Long-Term Development Plan, Vision 2030, and the National Diaspora Policy. This important mechanism is constituted by some talented and committed members of the diaspora and is divided into 5 working groups, namely people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. I would like to use this opportunity to urge all Jamaicans and friends of Jamaica to support the work of the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council. This body represents an opportunity to raise the level of discourse with a view to identifying practical and workable solutions to several challenges that we face as a nation and as a people. The truth is, this is a new mechanism and we are all part of history, creating and forging new frontiers of engagement, which will target government priorities as well as issues affecting the diaspora. Ladies and gentlemen, you would agree that with such a rich heritage of faith-based organizations serving Jamaica at home and abroad, it is indeed appropriate that the Partnership Working Group should choose to host this very timely conversation. Indeed, it is happening in a rather challenging environment where the pandemic has imposed severe restrictions. The pandemic has, however, also provided an opportunity for creative engagement, of which I am pleased to say that this group has taken full advantage as they continue to be involved in with Jamaicans across the globe. Please join me then in extending hearty congratulations once again to the Partnership Working Group, which has exemplified real commitment and devotion to the mandate of the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council. Thank you for allowing me this privilege of sharing this moment for you. How good and pleasant it is when God's people can live together in unity. Have a brilliant and productive webinar. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Minister Campbell. And by the way, Minister, I like the shirt. You know, oftentimes ministers, have a uniform. You know the uniform I'm talking, right? But,
yes. Oh, well, this is my Sunday best, you see.
So, Minister, thank you for joining us. It is
my pleasure. Anytime. Great. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Minister. So, as I've said before, for the members of the diaspora, that is your minister, right, in the government of Jamaica. So please be aware of that. He's a new minister. And as soon as they can buy their ticket,
I will be with you in the UK. As soon as they can buy it.
Well, Minister, we will make those arrangements quite quickly because we look forward to welcoming you to the UK and also across the. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Minister, again for joining us. I know it's a Saturday, so we really appreciate your presence and your words and remarks. Okay, so now this webinar is being hosted in partnership with the Integrated Diaspora Services. And I know some of you may be asking, who is that? So we're going to ask the CEO, Nordia Teep, to introduce Integrated Diaspora Services. And then after her brief remarks, we will be hearing from our keynote speaker, Reverend Bruce Fletcher. Nordia, the floor is yours.
Jamaica, land we love, full of so many beautiful places, memories, people, so rich in culture, resources, and opportunities, that it is more than enough to want to bring the heart back home. So many of us have left our homeland seeking new opportunities and exploration of the world, and now many of us in the diaspora are trying to find ways to show our love for our homeland and those we left behind. It is this unfulfilled need of the Jamaican diaspora that has inspired the creation of our company, Integrated Diaspora Services Limited. We help bridge the gap between what is and what could be for many Jamaicans living and working abroad. We provide access to the knowledge and support they need to conduct business transactions in Jamaica from anywhere in the world. Our vision is to bring the hearts back home for the betterment of our homeland, Jamaica. Through our worldwide service providers and partnerships, we provide care services that are designed to meet the many needs of the diaspora, spanning from their commercial and regulatory needs to the very personal and intimate needs of their families back home. That is why
United States chooses IDS.
Niha, Jungo chooses IDS.
United Kingdom chooses IDS.
The Caribbean chooses IDS.
Kazakhstan, IDS, Canada, Afrika inachagua mawazo ili kuleta uzalendo.
Kenya tunachagua IDS.
Canada chooses IDS
Because they bring hearts home.
let us help you bring your heart back home to Jamaica in the ways that matter most, both to you and your loved ones.
Heart back home to the things I know, to the place I know.
Greetings to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, who has helped us to join together in this fashion. Minister of State, Senator the Honorable Leslie Campbell, Her Excellency High Commissioner Sharon Miller, Bishop Ransford Jones, Dr. Kevin Brown, to all the members of the diplomatic corps and leaders of the various faith-based groups, a pleasant good afternoon to everyone on this platform and all those on social media. Welcome to this webinar. We thank God for making this event a possibility and for giving us another opportunity to empower our people and develop our country through our collaborative efforts as we trust God, the pilot of our souls, and the fuel behind our vision. Integrated Diaspora Services Limited provides a one-stop shop solution to the members of the Jamaican diaspora across the world in doing business in Jamaica, especially when they're not physically able to be in the country to do so. We understand and are quite aware of the nuances, the pain sometimes with carrying out business here. And so Integrated Diaspora Services is designed to hold your hand and provide the guidance and connections needed in a trusted and convenient environment. I am sure after this webinar, that the persons, for example, would need to register charities, NGOs, and businesses, locate properties, both commercial and personal, access their tax registration numbers, birth certificates, or assistance with the organization of your own webinars across the region. Whatever the support you desire or need, we are here using our God-given gifts and talents to connect and empower our people and develop our country. You will see our info in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to us at any time via social media, email, or phone. And if you didn't get to register, please place your contact info in the chat so we can email you a copy of this presentation as well as keep in touch with you. Please do enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and a great thank you for making this opportunity what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Nordia. So that was Nordia Teep, Chief Executive for Integrated Diaspora Services Limited, a company that is aiming to serve you in the diaspora with a wide range of services and products. Now it's time to hear from our keynote speaker, Reverend Bruce Fletcher. Now, Reverend Bruce Fletcher graduated with a degree in chemical engineering from the University of West Indies and in Trinidad and Tobago. He then served as the junior engineer representative at the Jamaica Institute of Engineers and worked at the Urban Development Corporation in Jamaica. Reverend Bruce Fletcher is a builder, and through his private practice, he has helped to develop townhouses, apartments, school buildings, and shopping plazas. He continues his work as an engineer and consultant and property manager. But Reverend Bruce Fletcher has been a Christian and a Christian leader, more specifically, from a very early age. And he has, throughout his life, been involved in several Christian institutions in Jamaica and outside of the country as well. Working over 20 years to this end, Reverend Fletcher has helped to establish several non-governmental organizations and ministries, such as the Pastors Fraternal in Trenchtown, Prayer 2000, Extreme Impact, the Coalition for Healthy Society, the National Association for the Family, and much more. He's also involved in the founding of Street Pastors, and in addition, he's hosted or co-hosted the inaugural Jamaica Christian Diaspora Conference and helped establish Christian Diaspora Alliances in Canada and the UK. He sits on the board of the African Forum for Religion and Government, a Christian organization aiming to impact Africa. In 2021, he received an award from the St. Andrew Memorial Seventh-day Adventist for community service. He continues to believe that our communities and nation can be transformed if more persons join the movement to make Jamaica a place of choice to live, work, raise families, do business, and retire. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our keynote speaker today, Reverend Bruce Fletcher.
Thank you very much, and it's great to be here. And I just want to say that it's a privilege to be able to share with you today. I find it really an honor because I think there are so many other persons who could do this job. But today you have appointed me, and I want to share what is on my own heart with this group and with this team. To the moderator, Dr. Kevin Brown, to Bishop Ransford Jones, Her Excellency Sharon Miller, and the State Minister in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Leslie Campbell, to all the ministers here and partners, greetings. I just want to say that the church can play a great role, I would say, in Jamaica's sustainable development goals. And if we were to look at what there are about 17 of them, but we can't cover them today. And I just think that the church can look at two areas that can make a difference in our nation. As was mentioned before, faith-based organizations have been involved in development in Jamaica. The church and our NGOs have played a significant role in the development in the areas of education and also in free villages, and also helping people to own their own homes. Both Professor Errol Miller and historian Mr. Arnold Bertram spoke about this. Professor Miller stated that the church played a role in creating wholesome, sustainable communities of the newly free slaved in what came to be called free villages. He stated that there was never a more successful community development initiative in the history of Jamaica. He also said that following emancipation to independence, the church was a prime mover in creating educational capacity. Since independence, the government has expanded and improved the capacity established by the church. The instrumentality of the church in creating and building this capacity in the area of education in Jamaica is beyond dispute. And historian Arnold Bertram reported that in 1864, the Christian church in Jamaica was running over 600 elementary schools. The idea of building society originated in the church, started by the mission of the Congregational Church, and the Anglican Church took it up later. And this had an ethical base in it, but it facilitated ordinary Jamaicans owning their own homes. Jamaicans, whether they're in Jamaica or in the diaspora, have been much involved in church, but have made significant contributions to Jamaica and Jamaicans in the diaspora. And I just want to mention a few, and today I want to just mention Nehemiah Foundation in the UK, and we have with us on the platform one of the founders, Bishop Wilton Powell, in forming that organization. And there was a wave of African Caribbean people who arrived in the 50s and the 60s, and they were now retiring en masse. And so they didn't have anywhere necessarily to go and to retire to. And here was some church leaders who sat down and looked at what could be done for these persons, these Jamaicans who were retiring and had, in a sense, nowhere to go. And so they formed this organization, and they also merged with United Churches Housing Association. Today, that organization has a portfolio of 1,250 properties, serving approximately 4,000 people from a multicultural African, Caribbean, etc., in the United Kingdom. So we see that the church and its NGOs have played major roles in the welfare of the Jamaican people. And as you see in the UK, even beyond the Jamaican people, there have been churches involved in supporting the pen relays that takes place regularly in the States. In Canada, you see the Diaspora Church addressing situations that African descent face in terms of racism. And so I just want to make the point that the church has been very much involved both locally and abroad in terms of national development. And this is just a tip of the iceberg. There are so many donations, medical supplies, Christian doctors giving back to Jamaica. Contribution of funds, and I just want to mention somebody, Lorna Stanley, who gave up her job in the States to come and start a remedial school in Trenchtown. And that story is multiplied several times. The church contribution and her NGOs, both here and the diaspora, should be in partnership with government and other agencies to play a role in achieving our national sustainable development goals. While the church has contributed significantly, both financially and otherwise, the impact can be much greater if we were more coordinated in our efforts and tackle several challenges which can lead to some of the sustainable goals being achieved. So while we're doing a lot and giving back a lot to our nation, we could do a lot more if we partner together, if we had a certain kind of framework that facilitated all the expertise, all the funding in a way that addresses our, what would be called the sustainable goals. And one of the sustainable goals that I would like to look at is to provide equitable and inclusive quality education and lifelong learning opportunities for all. Some suggestions in that regard: adopting 22 schools which are considered to be feeder schools for gangs. Churches can support the schools in different ways to make a difference. And there are some things that mentioned, they're mentoring, creating curriculum which can build the moral values in our young people. Young men knowing how to treat young ladies. Also how young ladies should operate as they develop in their life. We need also to make the schools in under-resourced communities premier schools. Remedial and after-school programs exist, and we must strengthen them so they become model schools that can be replicated. I just want to mention just about some young persons in a particular community who we worked with over a number of years. These young people, you know, they responded to the gospel. They when they were about 17, and it was mostly young men who responded. Today, they're all productive citizens. One of them have, you know, he has placed internet in his community. The provider comes to the top of his community, but not willing to come into his community to provide internet services. But he, because of his knowledge and study and research, has now provided internet service for his community. And there are a number of them who, as they grew up, you know, and they're now grown, what is happening is that they are doing things and productive things in their community. But one thing that happened on their journey is that when they were going to school, the pastor looked out for them, raised funds for them to get into schools, to get them also into particular careers, and now they're giving back to their community. If we could pool our efforts in respect to education, we would make a great difference, not only changing lives in terms of the school, but changing the community. If we change the schools in our communities, in our under-resourced communities, we will also be changing the community itself. And we have 106 violent communities, and there's no doubt reaching children at an early age, instilling values, can make a big difference in terms of what happens to them in life and what happens in their community. So I want to encourage a coordinated effort, and it would need a structure and a framework. And I just want to say, this is just an idea put forward where we have a Jamaica Research and Resource Center for Urban Education Transformation Admin Office, where information is brought in, resources are listed, both from the diaspora, from local colleges and universities, and where when we come together, we look at what are some of the issues in our nation, and we look at the resources that we have based on the diaspora, based on our local resources and stakeholders, then we can deploy in a very systematic way to address some of the issues that we face in our nation, where we can remedial schools. We can adopt 22 of those schools, which the Minister of National Security says that they're the feeder schools for gangs. We can support the church schools. We can also address the feeder schools to those 22 schools, so we get the children at a younger age to begin to think differently. So I want to encourage the diaspora and the church locally to begin to think that that's an area that we can tackle together as the church. And as was said earlier, the church has so much resources. It's not only have preachers, but it has educators, business people, professors, and we can all link together to increase the development of our nation. But again, I want to encourage that we work together. One can chase 1,000, but two can chase 10,000. And so one of the things, even as we discuss what we do, is to say, how can we put systems and frameworks in place that we can harmonize the things that are being done on the ground. Another area that I want to talk about is Sustainable Development Goal number 11, which talks about build inclusive, safe, and sustainable cities and human settlements in which the church can play a significant role. The Minister of Justice, Honorable Delroy Chuck, who spoke at our conference in 2018, clearly stated that the church played a significant role in the reduction of murders in the Grand Spend, Barbican, and Shortwood area, which is part of his constituency. He stated that his community had at least 30 murders a year, but with the intervention of community policing and other stakeholders, including the church, saw the murder rate drop to a rate of an average of 6 annually. And in some years, there were no murders at all. The Pastors Fraternal along with the community policing team, helped and played a key role in this situation. And there were times where peace was brokered at the church buildings, and also some of the programs that were implemented needed the church in order for them to be properly executed. From the inception of this initiative and the formation of the community partnership, which took place in Grandspend, Reverend Ian Muirhead has been the leader of the Ministers Fraternal at that time. Sorry, has been the leader of the stakeholder meetings, which include business people, police, and others. And he has led the way and drove a kind of peace initiative inside Grandspend. So up to today, it is still a peaceful community. And Minister Truck encouraged the church to work together, and he was recognizing that the church could accomplish a lot, but he felt that the church itself needed to work even closer together to be able to bring a change to communities. Recently, our organization, Operation Save Jamaica, has partnered with a denomination that has over 350 churches across the nation, most of which are in communities. And the partnership is in order to see how can we bring change to our communities on the ground. It is no question that the churches, as was said, we have the most churches per square mile, but the truth is we are in every community in Jamaica, and we are in even the most volatile communities that exist. This particular denomination, the New Testament Church of God, they have at least 50 churches in the most volatile communities in Jamaica out of 106. And so we believe with the example that we have seen in Grandspend, that the church working together, with the church being willing to be involved in community transformation, we can make a very big difference to what is happening to people in our communities, and also what is happening to the community itself. We can play a role in strengthening families, in education, in facilitating persons getting jobs, enabling entrepreneurship, and partnering with others to bring infrastructural improvement to these communities. One of the comments that some of the men from one particular community said to us, young men, they said they recognized while growing up, the children who grew up with both parents went to the better high schools. And so one of the strong areas of the church is the whole matter of family. We complain in Jamaica that the issue of family is in trouble, and the church can play a major role in the communities to help to build stronger families, to help people to broker peace in conflicts, even between husband and wife, even between male and female who live together. And the church can play a greater role in addressing those issues. I'm just sharing a partnership structure that we have, where we see the churches working in communities, but partnering with others in order to carry all the resources into the different communities to make a difference. And one of the things I want to encourage is the unity among the church, working together in communities, but we also want to encourage unity across the different ethnic groups across our diaspora. And I want to just say it's not just isolated in respect to the church, but in terms of building unity, I want us to know that everyone is part of Jamaica, who owns Jamaica as their own. We are out of many one people. And sometimes we don't see others as part of Jamaicans. But Africans, European, East Indians, Lebanese, or Chinese who have settled in Jamaica, we must see as Jamaicans, and we must work together, whether we're in Jamaica or in the diaspora, in order to bring change in our nation. There's a lot of mistrust, but among the church, there's already a certain level of trust between churches in the diaspora and churches in Jamaica. and we must capitalize on that trust. I've heard so many complaints from the diaspora that they can't trust certain things that have happened in Jamaica. They have sent money, they have done this, but they have not seen the effect of it. And they've also tried to send things to Jamaica, and it has created a big problem. And sometimes they send things somewhere else instead of Jamaica because the system is not in place to facilitate the things that the diaspora wants to give back to Jamaica. And I believe that the church has a certain level of trust that we can build a network. We can put certain things in place to allow free flow. I mean, abiding by the government rules, ensuring that the government is aware of what we're doing and have them sign off on it. But there's a certain level of trust that will facilitate, I believe, through the church connecting with one another in the diaspora and locally, and creating that channel for things to happen in a much faster and quicker way, and with much more resources being made available to what needs to happen on the ground. The church, in concluding, the church has contributed in the past to Jamaica's development and can do it again. Jamaica has the most churches per square mile, and that number is still growing with a large people resource that can make a difference. In the diaspora, Jamaicans have played major roles in churches, and many churches in the diaspora are filled with Jamaicans who are experts in many fields. Faith-based organizations can play a key role in helping to achieve the sustainable goals of providing equitable and inclusive quality education and lifelong learning opportunities for all. It can also build inclusive, safe, and sustainable cities and human settlement. The church and faith-based organization should be a catalyst for unity and trust in Jamaica with the diaspora in order to facilitate greater coordination and increase efforts, resulting in transformation of areas as we facilitate the SDGs goals. The church is called to be a restorative body as it represents Christ, whose mandate, according to Isaiah 61, 1-4, declares, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for captives and release from darkness for prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, and to provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor. They will rebuild the ancient ruins and restore the places long devastated. They will renew the ruined cities that have been devastated for generations." And we say this is indeed community transformation. May the church play a role in making Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. And as one brother says, and to retire. I know many of the persons in the diaspora would like to retire in Jamaica. And I believe that the church can play a key role if we work together to make that possible. God bless you all.
Thank you, Reverend Fletcher. Wow. You know, Reverend Fletcher, can I just say, this is, I'm an engineer, you're an engineer. This is why I think Jamaica need more engineers as leaders, right? Because you came not just to give a keynote, but you came for a plan, so you certainly exceeded my expectations. And I'm really glad to have heard your words and to have seen your plan and how you've linked it with the Sustainable Development Goals. And certainly, already you've delivered a tangible output. So I want to thank you, Reverend Fletcher, for your keynote. Now, can I just say that to all the participants that you can ask questions. We're going to allow a couple of minutes for questions before we go to our other featured speakers. I am seeing some good comments in the chat room Reverend. Dr. Case says, yeah, very profound delivery, Reverend Fletcher. And I can see there's a question here, Reverend Fletcher. I will ask it because I think we have to be an inclusive webinar. It says, does that statement include the LGBTQ community? And I would say that Jamaica remains an open society. But I don't know, Reverend, if you want to respond to that. There's also a question that was asked around this was from Andreen. She was asking, how can ordinary citizens and business people get involved? And I guess a quick response to that, Andreen, is that certainly in terms of the work that we're doing on the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council and through the partnership working group, business people, ordinary citizens are a key stakeholder, and we would like to work with the private sector, especially in the diaspora, to facilitate, nation building. So do get in touch with me, and I'm sure that through faith organizations, the same can be achieved, because I know the church works with a lot of private sector institutions as well. So keep your questions coming in, and as we move the program along. But thanks again, Reverend Fletcher, for your words and your plan, right? And your plan. So really, really appreciating that. Okay, so next on the agenda, we have our featured speakers. We've got five very brief introductory remarks by our featured speakers, just to set the scene, just to widen the conversation. Of course, this is the global diaspora, right? So we've tried to pull faith leaders from various regions. We haven't covered the entire globe, unfortunately, but we've got representation as far as Australia, right? So we've tried to sort of, get there in terms of being inclusive. And our first speaker is going to be Bishop Roy Notice. Bishop Notice is in Jamaica. Now, Bishop Notice was born in the hills of Sherwood Content in Trelawney. So, Bishop, I don't know if I should call you a country boy.
Yes, you can. It's an honor to be.
Okay. And has, of course, become a leader in the New Testament Church of God in Jamaica. One who's, I think, following in the footsteps of the now retired Reverend Raymond Notice and his late uncle James Notice. He attended William Knibb and Calabar High School. He also attended the University of the West Indies in Mona and the United Theological College of the West Indies, where he read for a master's degree in theology. He also holds a Doctor of Ministry degree from Columbia Theological Seminary of Atlanta. Now, prior to his current appointment, Reverend Notice served as a youth pastor of the Portmore Church and a senior pastor at the McDonald Lane, Mandeville, Old Harbor, and Waltham Park Road churches. He has also served as National Director of Youth and Christian Education, as it was called then, and also he was there as a member of the National Executive Committee and President of Bethel Bible Church. So very active church leader, and for the past 26 years, he has been sharing his life and ministry with his wife, Dr. Bennett Notice, and their 2 children. So let us welcome Bishop Notice.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brown, moderator. I greet the High Commissioner and the Senator, brothers, sisters, fellow Jamaicans all. It is a great joy to be here with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to contribute to this conversation. Already, my brother and friend Bruce has made the conversation very rich, and I have benefited greatly from what he has shared. Just to say to all of us, to remind us that today is Soup Day in Jamaica. So wherever you are, I encourage you to, have your bowl of soup as we continue this conversation. As I reflected on what I was asked to share on, I could not help but look up the term sustainable development. And there are myriads of definitions, but one that caught my eye said that sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It went on to say that it includes but is way more than environmental concerns. Once we are talking about development that is sustainable, it is about growing a strong, just, and healthy society. As I reflected on it, it reminded me of the Micah mandate that we all have as church folks. The Micah mandate in Micah 6 verse 8 says, "What does the Lord require of you? But to love mercy, do justice, and to walk humbly with God." So we are called upon as believers, as disciples of Christ in the church community to seek to meet the growing and diverse needs of all people existing in present communities, but also in future communities. And as a church, we seek to promote the well-being, we seek to promote social cohesion, and we want to create opportunities for people to live and to grow and to fulfill their best potential. Churches are in communities. So churches therefore have to be outward looking. That as we seek to do ministry, we must do ministry beyond the four walls. Churches feel the pain and joys of their communities. We see the drift from several of our communities. We see the dangers and delights that exist in our communities. So as we reflect on this, I believe there are great opportunities for churches in Jamaica to engage in meaningful partnerships with churches and our brothers and sisters in the diaspora so that we can help together, we can build stronger and healthier communities. I agree with Bruce that there are some areas that beckon for us to engage in meaningful partnerships. One is education and skills training. 2, values formation. 3, parenting. And 4, the training of community chaplains. I believe that these 4 areas would give us an opportunity for us to support each other as we seek to build a better Jamaica. As I think about these 4 areas, one of the ways in which we can help to facilitate the education and skills training, values formation, parenting, and community chaplaincy, I believe that we can revive our community centers. I grew up in a community where there was a community center in the community next door that was very vibrant and active. All kinds of activities took place there. Many of our community centers now are derelict, and I believe that churches can partner in taking over the management and operations of these centers. And in these centers, we can certainly ensure that they become places of learning, of meaningful conversation, of training, and of bringing community together. I say this finally, that as we seek to engage in partnership re-education, skills training, values formation, parenting, and community chaplaincy, I certainly believe that we have to look at the nature of these partnerships. I believe sometimes a mistake that some churches make from the diaspora is to seek to engage us, and I think in a very genuine way, and we're appreciative. The sending of barrels of food, which is welcome, which is good, but I think the engagement has to be deeper and has to be more than that. It has to be systematic. It has to come out of conversation with churches, and it also cannot begin big. it has to be small in the localized communities where we sit together with our friends from New York, from Australia, and we say, how can you help to ensure that whatever you do, whether your skills, your gifts, whatever resources you have to offer to the Jamaican community, how can we ensure that we connect with you and use these resources in a way that there is accountability, there is evaluation, there is ownership on both sides, and there is a kind of mutual investment. I believe that if we work together, we can make a difference in training young men and young women to occupy their places. And I believe that if more of our church folks are trained in community chaplaincy, then we can help to facilitate this. Thank you so much for the time afforded me.
Thank you so much, Bishop Roy Notice. So now we move to our next featured speaker, Bishop Wilton Powell. Bishop Powell is the former National Overseer of the Church of God of Prophecy, UK and France. He's also chair and founding member of RAFA, which is an international development agency charity, which has been set up to assist people in Africa, the Caribbean, and Europe. Bishop Powell currently serves as vice chair of the Nehemiah UCHA, a registered social landlord operating within the West Midlands in the UK. Bishop Powell is actually a qualified mechanical engineer and an industrial administrator with a degree in engineering, and has worked for companies such as Dunlop and other on a range of international projects. So help me to welcome Bishop Wilton Powell.
Good afternoon, good evening to everyone, participants, and all protocols observed to conserve time. It's indeed a pleasure for me to participate today, and due recognition to you, Dr. Brown, and also acknowledgement to our keynote speaker, Pastor Bruce, a fellow worker with whom I've engaged over the years. It gives me pleasure to participate in this initiative, because the realities of developing our nation is at the very heart of our purpose. Jesus, in teaching his disciples to pray, said, give us this day our daily bread. And you may consider when we're a religious context, but yet giving us our daily bread was high in the priorities. When I look at that, I realize that it was not just about food and activity we were speaking about it, but it was speaking about the very fabric of creation. And as we contemplate creation, God's order, the high order in which man was placed, we realize that holistic theological perspective places us in a context where we must sustain God's creation. And it is from that position that I start. We must begin to realize, and I've been practicing indeed, that our theology must embrace the entire creation in which God has placed us. That means that, of course, we acknowledge his authority, but on a day-to-day basis, the technology, knowledge, and all the aspirations of man's endeavor is indeed within the scope of God's plan. Therefore, in observing that, we should move towards sustaining this creation. We have been recently in Scotland, we have seen COP26. That shows the crisis of which we have arrived, in the sense that man has exploited God's creation without the knowledge of God and has placed us in jeopardy. Sustainable creation is a response to that difficult situation in which we have found ourselves. But speaking specifically to the Caribbean, we know that our situation in history, slavery, and all the consequences thereof has placed us also within difficulties. But yet, it is necessary for us as his people, a people of faith who believe that his directives, his sovereign will enable us to manage this situation. Thanks, Bruce, for leading this conversation this evening and directing us to that initiative of how God, by acknowledging God and actively participating, actively bringing the skills And let me say this, that all knowledge belongs to God, and he uses it according to his will. Jesus' prayer said, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Therefore, as we contemplate the sustainable development, let's be practical in this regards. For example, you referred to the commencement of building societies. We know that Jamaican building societies have actively intervened within the diaspora. And we as the church for many years have been ensured that the funds repatriated to our country, Jamaica and other islands, has sustained the currencies and has sustained the Jamaican dollars for several years, because we know the funds, the amount of funds that is being sent back. And Minister, I've observed that the government does not acknowledge the repatriation of funds. I do believe that as you are here today, and if you're still with us, that's something that needs to be addressed. You should say something about it. We do speak to the World Bank and the IMF, and we do have stiff terms in terms of what happens there. But nothing is said about the repatriation of funds to our country. And we make sure on year, we engage the executive, we engage the various people, and something needs to be said and something needs to be done. And I'm saying to you, Dr. Kevin Brown, through this council, as an instrument of government, that matter needs to be addressed. We are also saying that we understand that the weather patterns of our world is now devastating the economies within the Caribbean. And we believe that a more resilient economy, the political economy, should be strengthened. And a key issue is building resilience in the economies of the Caribbean and also the developing world. We know that historically, there has not been suitable infrastructure placed for the sustaining of the former colonial economies. And we do believe that it is necessary now for that to be addressed. And as we contemplate reparations and all of those things, that we should be looking at how can we engage in development of our nations. We have got thousands of acres of land within the rural Jamaica, and our boys and girls has to go into the cities to find work. Why can't we begin to cultivate the lands and manage the soil, erosion? You look in many areas, we have got deforestation and all of those things. Why can't we use the intelligence and use the structures that we have there to now begin to look at how the rural area can be more constructively engaged? How can the man who handles his machete and all of those practical things, how can they be engaged in the economy? It's not only within the universities that education is available. Education is also available in the rural areas. And we cannot have people moving into the rural areas, and the criminal tendency among our nation is largely due to many people who are disengaged within the centers. Let us now begin to negotiate and building resilience in the economy, that those people in the rural areas can also be engaged. They can cultivate, they can be soil management, the institution can also develop the necessary tools to empower people to do what they need to do. There's much more that could be said, because we realize that a strategic leadership is necessary through our tertiary institutions. We here have acquired knowledge over the years. I'm now retired. I came here as a boy. I'm an engineer, and we can work to develop our country. We can do things and transmit knowledge back to our homeland that will enable us to do new things. There's much more that could be said, but time is limited. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop, for your words and your introductory remarks. So our next speaker is going to be Bishop Glenford Duffus, and Bishop Duffus is He has worked for over 40 years as a teacher, a vice principal, a principal, and now a retired superintendent of education with the Toronto District School Board and Jamaica's Ministry of Education. He's the founder and senior pastor of Ebenezer Holiness Church of God in Toronto and serves as presiding bishop for the branches in Jamaica, Haiti, and the United States. He works as a teacher and preacher and has conducted interdenominational conferences, seminars, and workshops nationally and internationally. He is the current chairman of the Canadian Jamaican Diaspora Christian Alliance. Help me welcome Bishop Glenford Duffus.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. Our moderator, Dr. Kevin Brown, Senator, the Honorable Leslie Campbell, Her Excellency Sharon Miller, our keynote speaker, Reverend Bruce Fletcher, featured speakers, workshop moderators, and viewers. Accept sincere greetings from the Canadian Jamaica Diaspora Christian Alliance. The theme of this forum evokes three concepts that resonate with me and that I believe should be pertinent to our deliberations today and the actions to be provoked by us coming together. The concepts: collaboration, servant, and transformative leadership. Collaboration speaks to team approach. For years, we have worked conscientiously, assiduously, as individual, organization, or church, and have accomplished much. However, our achievements could have been significantly amplified or augmented if we had capitalized on the strengths in our unity. We can serve the diaspora better if we pool knowledge, resources, and expertise together. Collaboration also speaks to valued members having a seat at the decision-making table. This approach has potential for the collection of authentic and relevant data that reflects real experiences and needs at the grassroots level. Plans developed with this information and level of influence should be productive. Collaborating with faith-based organizations has the potential to capitalize on the trust factor which exists at the local community level. Collaboration also has potential to be transformative. Leaders are cognizant of the social justice needs and have the propensity to effect change. Leaders at the local community level can be classified as the more knowledgeable, a term borrowed from the psychologist or sociologist Vygotsky, meaning what individuals can do with or without help. Leaders have knowledge of available expertise that can be tapped in to support human development. Sustainability is logically linked to societies developing the human side of the organization or the community. This approach can cure permanency or legacy. In the contextual framework of collaboration, training, apprenticeship, and mentorship can be realized. Financial partnerships can be established with faith-based organization and governmental deposits. Planning and accountability mechanism put in place to oversee stewardship. Entrepreneurial enterprises can be encouraged, researched, and duplicated aimed at longevity. The philosophy of servant leadership characterizes the commitment to growth, shared leadership, and community capacity building. This connotes that many individuals have expertise and can contribute to society building. The organization is therefore sustained regardless of those who are no longer in office. Actions correlated with this philosophy and belief should be transformative simply because they rest on the knowledge of social justices and leadership capacity building. As a group, I envision us achieving what I would call greater civic engagement, a program on financial literacy with curriculum and pedagogy tailored to local needs, shared facilities, resources, and expertise. In this atmosphere of trust, we develop comfort level of participants on moral imperatives, emotional intelligence, and restorative justice. I'd like to briefly share an initiative from the Canadian perspective established by our church here in the city called Generation Chosen. Started with about 50 inner city violent prone neighborhoods, kids, disengaged, marginalized, jobless, and for the most part, high school dropouts. The number quickly grew and has included females as the young men invited their girlfriends. Today, the program boasts approximately 300 fully participating young people with over 20 paid staff, all young people. The program provides assistance in credit accumulation for high school's diploma, post-secondary scholarships, funding for entrepreneurial ideas, and civic engagement initiatives. The program offers a large gamut of opportunities to females and males, tailored to specific needs. Although started just by the church, this program has now attracted financial support from government, corporations, and individuals, and boasts a budget of almost $1 million. Groundwork is now being currently laid to launch chapters in communities with similar characteristics and needs. A partnership with this Generation Chosen group has been established with the Canadian Jamaican Diaspora Christian Alliance. A program like this exemplifies what collaboration, more knowledgeable transformation, or transformative leadership can accomplish. Thanks to all the organizers of and participants of this forum. My hope is that we can find the courage necessary to make meaningful, constructive, and transformative changes for individuals, communities, and more significantly, for the global society. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop Duffus, for your introductory remarks. And so we move on to our fourth speaker, Reverend Andrew Bennett, who is in the United States. Reverend Bennett is a native of the inner city of Kingston, and he's a graduate of the Jamaica Theological Seminary. He has served in 1994 as an adjunct professor at the Bethlehem Moravian College, lecturing in religious education methodology. He also served as a guidance counselor at the St. Elizabeth Technical High School and director of Passaic County Future Lives. Currently, Reverend Bennett is an ordained clergy in the Church of the Nazarene Metro New York District and the president and founder of Andrew Bennett Consulting LLC. a leadership development and professional coaching solution company. He has been an adjunct professor of biblical studies at Pillar College in New Jersey since 2013. Andrew is an evangelist and very active in the community. He's a certified coach, a teacher, a speaker. He reads 5 academic languages, and he holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Theology, a Master's, and is also pursuing his PhD. Let us welcome Reverend Andrew.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. It's afternoon where I am in the world, and I consider it a privilege to be invited to address this matter. All protocols observed, I greet my brothers and sisters in Christ. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. The future of Jamaica's economic growth and social development is somewhat predicated on a viable, organized, and mobilized Jamaican diaspora, dutifully engaged in nation building in Jamaica. I want to express that this is a significant discussion, and I think we really need to give great consideration to the diaspora itself. Much of what has been said so far has been about Jamaican mostly and what's happening. And I want to kind of look at what's happening in the diaspora, because currently the diaspora is seemingly not fulfilling its true potential to contribute significantly to economic growth and social development in Jamaica. I want to also note that there's a need for an intentional initiative to increase the developmental capacity within the diaspora by facilitating strong, productive, and engaged communities here in the diaspora. So it's one thing to want the diaspora engaged, but it's another thing to get the diaspora engaged through maybe the Global Diaspora Council. Jamaica must move with much alacrity then to empower them and mobilize the diaspora to engage in intentional nation building back in Jamaica. The church in the diaspora has a unique and pivotal role in this initiative as a catalyst towards spiritual, social, and economic transformation in Jamaica. For this, however, to become a reality, the church needs to be encouraged to adopt the biblical grounding and exegetically sound paradigm shift required for stimulating grassroots movement and social and economic nation building. Now, in terms of some of the needs in the diaspora, and I want to just blow through this a little bit, there are many Jamaicans in the diaspora who seem to be spiritually, socially, economically struggling and not oriented to give back to Jamaica. There is a need for family development in the diaspora. Many are living in struggling single parent arrangements. Many lack basic social services and support within the diaspora systems. And equally is that there is a need for youth development. Many of our youths are, latchkey kids. There's not much after school support, and there are many who are not maximizing their opportunities. In fact, some of them, a lot of people in the diaspora are wasting those opportunities. In terms of needs also, there's a need for quality immigration services. A lot of our young people are getting into trouble, those coming up, not settling down as they should, and I believe that's an opportunity for the church. There's a grave need for small business development and support for budding Jamaican entrepreneurship. A lot of our Jamaicans are not doing business correctly. They are not licensing, they're not registering with the states, and so they cannot contribute as they could. There is a need to engage and mobilize socially strong and economically stable Jamaicans in rebuilding the Jamaican diaspora. It has to be intentional that we work from the local missions to build the kind of rapport that will cause people to want to give back to Jamaica. Now, in terms of a conceptual framework, I believe that the church is indeed uniquely placed. The opportunity to engage diaspora transformation, which leads to nation building, lies then in the needs. And there is strong biblical precedence for this to be executed through the church. And there are several conceptual frameworks. Jeremiah 29, 4-7 situation. We have the Nehemiah story and the Ezra story, where people in diaspora realize that there is a need to engage resources in resident countries to turn resources back to homeland. And I believe that there is a very big opportunity there that the church should focus on. Now, in terms of a paradigm, in this paradigm, the church can assume the role to facilitate community development among Jamaicans in the diaspora, because it is when the communities in the diaspora are developed that they can turn around and help Jamaica. We should pursue the biblical mission of discipleship through programs that move people in the diaspora from betterment to development. Too many of us in the diaspora are just surviving, and we need to get out of survival mode to developmental mode. We need to launch more community development corporation, faith-based nonprofits that will, deal with family development, economical development, advocacy, personal and professional development, social entrepreneurship, and such the like. I also want to say that as a biblical model suggests, the church in the diaspora should continue to mobilize prayer for both the prosperity of Jamaica and the diaspora alike. I had the privilege of serving the past 14 years as chairman as the Jamaica Diaspora Day of Prayer and Fasting, and this should continue. And this two-pronged approach will strategically increase the development and capacity of the Jamaican diaspora by building strong and productive communities within the diaspora. These strong and productive communities then will be able to make impacting sustainable contribution back to Jamaica in nation building through remittances, through vacationing, promotion of the tourist product, business investment, and such the like. Additionally, with the church and diaspora community empowered and engaged in social, spiritual awareness and broader concept of Christian mission, of addressing pain and poverty, more local churches will see the need to involve in the social and economic development of Jamaica and subsequently get involved through regular missions and relief support. So what is the rationale then? The rationale then is strong individuals build strong families. Strong families build strong communities, and strong communities build strong nations. We have to get the diaspora stronger. What are the recommendations then? Intentionally strengthening the collaboration between the various Jamaican missions, local churches, faith-based organizations within the diaspora, by appointing a church and community liaison within every Jamaican mission across the world, facilitating continued partnerships and collaboration between the Jamaican missions, local churches, Christian denomination, faith-based groups, and the prayer movements, and serve as an information hub for diaspora. I want to also say that, the local consulates could sponsor a series or some series of symposia among churches and faith-based organizations in the diaspora to begin the conversation of attempting to cast a new vision. You see, we have to take this discussion out of the cerebral and get more practical in the way we do business. Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate the time.
Oh, thank you very much, Reverend Bennett. Another leader with a plan. I mean, can I just thank you for your presentation again? And it's a shame with the thing with virtual webinars is that we can't hear the loud claps I'm sure you all would be receiving from the audience. But thank you to all our speakers that have come and gone so far. We have one more to go. And then, we're going to get down to the business of really discussing how we put this strategy together. You've heard from all the speakers who have outlined out the way forward, but certainly We also will be having workshops on the topics as well. So let's go to our final speaker. She is Dr. Stephanie Fletcher Larty, and she's based in Australia. And she's a senior research fellow, a public health epidemiologist, working on communicable diseases and emergencies in Australia. But she also serves as the executive pastor at Destiny Impact Worship Center in Australia. And she's a singer and artist, and you can certainly listen to her music on Spotify. So she couldn't be here with us today because of the extreme time zone differences, but she has sent us a pre-recorded video that will be played now.
Moderators, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and members of the clergy, all protocols have been observed. According to Prime Minister Holness, the Sustainable Development Goals are a game changer, and they are aligned with Jamaica's key development priorities. The Christian Bible in Psalm 127 verse 1 says, "Unless the Lord builds a house, its builders labor over it in vain. Unless the Lord watches over a city, the watchman stays alert in vain." Without the help of the Lord, it is useless to build a home or to guard a city. This implies that by including God in our plans, then they are more likely to succeed than if he was not. Since the faith-based community makes up a significant proportion of the Jamaican diaspora, it makes both natural and spiritual sense to forge partnerships with faith-based component of the diaspora in support of sustainable development. Jamaica is blessed to have produced many technical experts scattered throughout the diaspora who individually and through the various sectors and organizations they represent, they can contribute to a higher level sectoral input into the country's development. Today, by drawing on my own personal experience in international health development and emergency response, I would like to focus on Goal 4 of the Jamaica's National Goals of Vision 2030. Here, I suggest some opportunities for partnership with technical experts in the religious community working in this space for Jamaica's sustainable development. The Voluntary National Review Report on Implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals 2030 have clearly identified the impact of natural disasters and the negative effects of climate change among the vulnerabilities which have constrained efforts towards sustainable development. Historically, the church has played a significant role in development, particularly around things like education and health. Over time, the church has increasingly played an important role in the areas of disaster risk reduction, helping to build resilience and responding to emergencies. Examples of these can be seen in the work of faith-based organizations such as Samaritan's Purse, the Adventist Disaster Relief Agency, the Catholic Relief Agency, World Vision, Salvation Army, and other religious organizations operating in the humanitarian space. The local church is often the first place people seek shelter and are often the first group to rise up to provide relief for the local community. A good place to begin, therefore, would be to connect and establish strong relationships with organizations that are working in this space, create partnerships between local and international faith-based organizations in the diaspora, and maintain an ongoing dialogue. Faith-based organizations operating in the disaster risk reduction space will be able to provide orientational capacity building and training on caring for the earth, sustainable use of resources, climate change adaptation, disaster risk reduction and management, and community-based contingency planning. Community-based contingency planning is an essential tool to build community resilience and capacity to respond to and bounce back from environmental disasters. Faith-based organizations can play a critical role in developing community engagement strategies for identified and selected high-risk communities. Faith-based organizations can tap into the expertise to create opportunities to promote environmentally sustainable livelihoods and reduce climate change associated risks and natural hazards through the regulation of environmental health practices. In essence, tapping into the expertise of Jamaicans abroad can help to tailor these strategies for the local community. Professionals are often the first port of call for mental health and psychosocial support during acute and long-term emergencies. It is important, therefore, that we work with our technical experts in the diaspora to tailor our policies to ensure that non-government organizations and humanitarian organizations are able to partner effectively with Jamaica. In closing, one of the easiest and most positive ways the church can help is to seek God's direction and his wisdom in our planning processes. God does hear and answer prayer, and it is obvious that God wants to be involved in our plans. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for the opportunity to contribute to this dialogue.
Okay, well, that was Dr. Stephanie Fletcher Larty, all the way from Australia. Couldn't be with us today because of the, as I said, extreme time zones. But she sent her message, and certainly it was a really good one with lots of recommendations in there as to how the church can help with nation building. So you've heard the speeches, and you know, they were really good speeches with not just talk, but recommendations, solid, tangible actions that you could hang a hat on. But we want to really drill down into the next steps. And this is why this webinar is divided into the presentations that you've heard, which have now been come to a conclusion. And now we're going to have workshops. So the technical team are going to allow all of you, I can see how many people on here, there's 70 people on the Zoom, and we want everyone on the Zoom to get into a workshop. There are 4 workshops that are going to be led by Dr. Sharon Wiles, Dr. Kay Morris, Beverly Johnson, and Bishop Neville Owens. And they will introduce themselves in the respective workshops that they will be hosting, just to let you know what these workshops are. So the first one is called How Can the Diaspora Leverage and Benefit from Jamaica Through Faith Partnerships? And this is going to be led by Beverly Johnson. The other one is How Can We Build a faith-based network to get more people involved to facilitate this partnership initiative that we've been talking about throughout this webinar. The third one is How Can We Expand the Charitable Initiatives through the faith-based sector? And finally, what more can the government do to reduce red tape and barriers to partnership and collaborative projects? So the technical team to launch the workshops, we'll be in the workshops for about, say, 15 minutes or so. And, you know, we really want everyone to participate in the conversation, including our featured speakers and guest speakers. So click on a workshop, go in there, share your views. The workshop leads will then take away your recommendations and will come back into this main room for to hear what each workshop is proposing as a way forward.
Dr. Brown, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Bishop.
Yeah, this issue around the voting, and both parties should, if they are serious about the diaspora participating effectively, it would have been a great lift if the 2 parties could come to some agreement in Jamaica of how they can see the diaspora effectively participating within the electoral process in Jamaica. And that will make a dramatic shift. And I believe through your council, if you can make representation of that matter at both parties, that has to be a bipartisan issue. And if that could be dealt with effectively, we would see a noticeable shift, especially in participation and collaboration from the diaspora. But at the moment, there is a feeling that all that we do is contribute, but the parties does not take us seriously. And the issue I've raised with regard even to acknowledge that we make reparation and giving funds, repatriated funds. Nothing is said. And I think that is almost like I'm giving you something and you've got to give it respect. We love our country and give it without hesitation. But I do believe if the government take acknowledgement, both parties again, take acknowledgement of this, that will give a measurable movement in the fund, the reparation, the participation, and respect. At the moment, the respect that we feel, I'm actively engaged, but the way I'm looking at it, in the years I've been involved, and I've had early discussion and seen nothing, I'm wondering how do they see us? And I've been participating over 20 years in these events, and I've seen nothing that tells me, apart from the discussions, recommendations, resolutions, I've not seen one solid item that the government of either party, I'm not blaming one side, I'm not on one side, where this matter is concerned, none has actually made something which says it goes into Parliament, it's recommended, and it's effectively, and we will do that. That for me, until something, we are here to support. And many people have known we'll do it, and it'll be a nonchalant thing. But in terms of the emotions, in terms of the policy, and the vigilant ones who belong to parties will do it also. But believe me, if this thing is done and treated seriously by the both parties, there will be a measurably improvement in interaction. That's my view.
Yeah, no, voting has been a topic that has been put forward to the government for many years. And unfortunately, it's not really progressed. I think there are a few challenges there, Bishop Powell. I think, first of all, yes, I think it would be quite progressive of the government to offer voting to the diaspora. And in fact, many countries do. Jamaica has a Westminster-style governance structure, which might not lend itself to that, to the voting process, well, for overseas citizens as easily as other systems might allow. So at the moment, in the Westminster system, you vote for an MP within a geographical constituency, right? And then the party with the most MPs basically elects the Prime Minister. So you don't vote directly for a Prime Minister. We don't have an executive presidency where you can vote directly for the leader of the country. You vote for MPs and the party with the most MPs.
Majority, I don't understand that.
So the challenge, Bishop, is how do you assign votes within the diaspora to constituencies in Jamaica? So I think for voting in the diaspora to occur, you would need perhaps constitutional change. You may need to make the country a republic, and by doing so, introduce maybe an executive leadership style where Jamaicans, both in the country and overseas, could vote for the leader of the country directly. I mean, a bit like how people vote directly for the president of the United States. So I think what you're asking for would require some constitutional change, and it's not beyond Jamaica to make that constitutional change if it's in the interest of the country.
Dr. Brown, if my information is correct, I've been informed that Barbados has something similar to what I'm asking for. It's not beyond imagination for us to formulate something of a similar nature.
Barbados system is slightly different. I think the president there is, it's not clear to me, but I'm not sure. I don't think the president, the presidential role that they've created, having made the country a republic, is an executive presidency. I don't think so. So I'm not, and it's not clear to me how the president of Barbados will be appointed or elected. So that's
They've
left.
got some sort of participation. Well, my information, I will recheck my information. But I've been informed some years ago that they have some similar arrangement, but I'm not sure exactly how.
Oh, you meaning what? Barbadians in the diaspora can vote? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I've been informed.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay.
I might be wrong. But
I would have to look in.
you know, it's not beyond the wit of man to formulate something.
No, exactly. So and that's the key point, right? That if we have political will behind this, then it could happen. So, but you know, your point is well made and taken, and I think certainly we can have conversations outside of this forum to see where diaspora voting could go, and you know, have those conversations with government to see what they think is possible in that regard.
I remember several years ago, got to be about a better part of 20 years now. I remember I read about the demographics of Jamaica, and Jamaica is almost 50% of the population is outside, 50% in, and if they should, all the external component of the demographic should participate, it places Jamaica into a upper quartile into economically, well beyond a undeveloped country economically. And our participation, our serious participation, will shift the economic demographics of Jamaica remarkably. And I don't think that that studying and looking at those figures has really been translated into a strategy for the development of the nation. And it's most unlikely it will not, because of the current mental attitude that we have adopted. Clearly, the constituencies and so forth, you know, in terms of economics, we who are now living in North America and Canada, United States, just our economic position, we were fully participating in the Jamaican economy. We could overnight, Jamaica would be economically registered among the developed countries.
Yes, absolutely. No, I agree with you, and this is where we want to get to, and that's what we've been encouraging the government to do, is to really engage with the diaspora. You know, at all levels, you know, financially, economically, professionals, you know, in terms of professional skills exchange, you know, really tapping into the diaspora to energize the Jamaican economy and also the Jamaican governance as well. So that's the journey we're on, you know, and I think,
you know what, Bruce and I and few others, Les Isaacs, few others participated when we initiated, or we call it the faith-based diaspora conference. The essential reason for us to have done that is that we're not going to be talking about what to do. We're going to actually do it, and we'll report what we do in the conferences. And if you notice, the nature of Bruce's report was the things that he's actually done. It's not things he's going to do, it's things that we have done. And we have done things, for example, he did not mention, well, I think he did mention Liner's report. I think it's Rosetown or one of those things where internet, we had actually gone about and actively ensured that an internet service was erected for people who are underprivileged. And one of the things that we are thinking about on the faith-based diaspora was the rolling out of that internet service, and a small company that was established by Lionel under the OSJ. We're hoping to roll that out into other difficult communities, and in fact, Bruce did identify other communities that we will take it into, and we will do that. And the reason why we're doing that, we're not going to be talking about it. We're going to do it. It's not a lot of money, but we're going to identify people where we know where the money will go. We know what is said will be done, And that's one of the issues that you know, the trust, the whole sense of confidence, and the things of what we say, and that's what the faith-based community brings to the table. Whatever we say we're going to do, it's going to be done. And for me, it's not just about talking about it. We know the government has issues around the economic resources to facilitate projects. We do know that. And this is why I think that the diaspora has not really advanced, because it has not got the resources to advance around this discussion. We could talk about it, but a faith-based approach is that we are going to finance it ourselves. We go into our pockets and we take money and we go out, we collect it, and we raise the funds, and whatever we say we'll do it. So the issue for me is that's why we get this decoupling with the government, with the diaspora conferences by the government, and the faith-based, which is promoted by OSJ and others, because the resources to facilitate things are not there. And you cannot make things happen without resources. Mm-hmm. So that's a major issue. And if we do not close that gap, we'll always have problems with it.
Sure, no, I agree with you. So we do have quite a lot to, you know, in terms of systemic problems and challenges. We have quite a few of them to solve. But I think if we collaborate as faith institutions, you know, with a range of stakeholders, the government, the private sector, NGOs, then I think, you know, some really significant progress could be made. It's just how to do that in a structured way, right? How do you create a framework that facilitates that?
We need to decouple it. The diaspora development has to be decoupled from party and from the government. It needs to be set up under, as how we've set up the National Planning Agency and all of those, because the diaspora development has to be under one of those agencies. It cannot be a party-based thing and government connected. Yes. Because, for example, the issues that are in government, the change of parties, change of policies, always reflect in the diaspora, and that's one of the biggest issues that we face. And I think that that needs to be looked at seriously, because if it's the government, both parties, the leader, the government and opposition must look at it, set up under an agency, and which has a vehicle for connecting and for raising funds and doing various things and collecting funds and working with the private sector and in executing projects. Because if we work in government in that regards, it's not going to work. We have got to have a vehicle, respond to government, respond to a cabinet office, but it has to be decoupled. What you're doing here needs to be set up under an agency. Why not? It doesn't have to be a massive office, but it needs to be broken away from the government and the administrative elements, a secretariat, if you will, strategically focused with international perspective that does it. Because if it's operating on whenever the parties changes, I've noticed for the last 10, 15 years, whenever there's a change of government, you know, it impacts the function of the diaspora seriously.
Yes. Well, you know, what I would say, Bishop, is that are you aware of the Jamaican National Diaspora Policy? Because this policy, are you aware of the Jamaican National Diaspora Policy?
I've been following it over the years. Possibly it might be some details I might have missed, but what I've noticed, a general observation, whenever there's a change of government, because it's integrated within the Department of Foreign Affairs, there's always a delay. For example, whenever the change of government is almost a year it takes before the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade and Foreign Affairs get around to dealing with the diaspora. It's always a last thing he does.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned the diaspora policy is because that actually some significant progress has been made there, where yes, the diaspora policy has been in draft for several years, but we are now at the stage where it's actually been implemented, or at least implementation is something that is seriously on the table, having gone through cabinet, having gone through the parliament.
What's the outline of it?
Well, the policy is built around the Sustainable Development Goals, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and it's quite far-reaching in terms of
how will it be managed? How is it managed? How is it selected? Who is the governing? Right.
So the governance of it is something that is still being ironed out, but the proposal that is written into the policy, at least to look at from a feasibility standpoint, is the creation of a Jamaica Diaspora Executive Agency. So my expectation and hope is that will now be embarked on, where they will look at the feasibility of creating such an agency, which clearly from your remarks is something you're passionate about. And I think that could be an agency that would be sort of given the powers to really fully implement the policy, the diaspora policy. So that's something that I'm hoping will move forward, and we'll keep an eye on that. But I know implementation is something that is currently being looked at, and I would anticipate that the diaspora will have a view on that as things unfold.
But clearly, I welcome that shift, because I do believe that until we have some secretariat that has a distinct governance responsible to government, irrespective of party, clear objective, clear goals, a board which implements policies, finance, we could finance it, we could sign up to financing it, and ensuring that it works, and it works with the international agreement, with also government planning, and integrating that into on an overall basis. But we need some stability at the front end. It cannot be just under the ministry, and it clearly needs to be, that needs to be sorted. It clearly needs to be. I've seen it, I've observed it over the years, and it has not been as progressive as it ought.
Okay, well,
that's my observation.
Bishop Powell, I think we are closing the rooms now.
Okay.
And I think let me just ask the technical team. Percy, are we all back?
Yes.
Yes, you're back.
Okay. So can you? You're sharing a screen. Can we remove that? And okay. All right. Well, I can see we have 64 people on the Zoom, and I trust most of you had the opportunity to enter a room and really have some fruitful conversations around the topics that you were given. I look forward now to hearing from the workshop leads as to some of the more tangible outcomes from your sessions. So we'll start with, by the way, can I just confirm that the workshop leads are ready to give their feedback? Yes.
Dr. Brown, we really want to apologize for Dr. Neville Owens. He didn't get into his room, and he was the lead for that room.
Oh wow!
Okay. He never got into his room at all.
But he joined our room, and it was exciting.
Oh, you joined your room? Okay, man.
Okay, so
listen. HC came into our room, and she was like, gave us all the information there that we talk. We got to switch. It's okay. All right.
Right. So let me just confirm then. I'm expecting to hear from Beverly Johnson, Dr. Sharon Wiles, Reverend K. Morris, and you're saying that Bishop Owens wasn't in the room.
No,
Bishop
I was one who conducted it.
Yes. Okay. So you will report on his behalf.
Yeah, I'll give you a briefing on it.
All right. So it sounds like we are ready to go. So let's hear from the first workshop lead, Beverly Johnson. The topic was, how can the diaspora leverage and benefit from Jamaica through faith partnerships? And Beverly has said it was exciting, so I look forward to hearing her report. Beverly, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity given to us to have this conversation and to report back to you the findings. It is our view that we need to have healing in our nation. There is a psyche of mistrust. There is a view that our people are wounded. And so these major trust issues are one of the hindrances for the progress of Diaspora Initiative being successful in the programs that we would like to bring to Jamaica. So first of all, we need the church through prayer. We need the church through conversations, just to think about how do we go about healing our nation. People are wounded, and even in the diaspora, we too have a high sense of distrust as to when we send items or when we offer our charities or when we want to establish businesses, that we seem to have to be paying under the table, or we seem to have to be trying to find our own way. There's no structure in place for us to be able to assist. So it is felt that a central point, which will give access to information as to how persons within the diaspora who wish to do business or to give back based on their skill sets in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, sorry, how do we structure this? So there needs to be a structured office or offices within the diaspora. This could be in the mission offices, or it could be in the honorary council offices, or it could be a structure established which is managed through the church. But there needs to be a structured office for where there is information flow and a system that creates collaboration of information. It depends on who you speak with, the information flow will be always different. So we need centralized, structured systems in order for us to be able to see the kind of potential investment and support that Jamaica needs from us, the diaspora. It is also felt that we're too focused on Jamaica before we address the issues, rather than focusing on members in the diaspora. There is an assumption that everybody in the diaspora is doing well, and that's not so. So we need to have a proper engagement and to be able to connect members in the diaspora with their communities in Jamaica. And we have to do that by having programs that engage the members in the diaspora as to why it is vitally important for them to take a look back home and see how best they can be of assistance. It is urgent also for the Diaspora Fund to be a conversation. And one suggestion is that if you think about it, it is said that there's probably about 3 million Jamaicans living overseas. But let's say there is 1 million. And if we said 1/4 of those, which could be found within the church communities, would give a single dollar or a pound, depending on which country they're living in, each month, we would have been able to send a few of our people or many of our young people through to tertiary education. One of the difficulties I found, and I've spoken about that many times, I'm an example of that. I came out of a family, single mother, who I was doing very well in high school, graduated at the top of my class, but my parents could not afford, my mother could not afford to send me on to tertiary institution. I'm not worse off for it, I'm quite good, but the point I'm making, we can help each other by the diaspora funding, and that's one of the consensus that we need to look at. We need to have this conversation to again establish the diaspora fund. It is also believed that the church needs to be seen as an equal in the decision-making process of government and stakeholders. We're always told about what is going to happen. We're not part of the process. And then oftentimes it doesn't get very far because of the lack of gathering everyone around the table so that when we speak, we come to collective decisions that will enhance all of us in Jamaica and the diaspora. There are numerous opportunities, and so we ask for the possibility of, if we're not going to get the diaspora fund, we could then ask for an educational support fund or a scholarship fund. And I'm sure everyone in the diaspora and even those in the Jamaican community who are doing well for themselves, returnees who have education, there's a vast skill data bank which is sitting right there in Jamaica. When the returnees come home, there is nothing available for them to impart all that skill set and training that they have. And so it is felt that this is one area. I would like to put another one on the table, in addition to the funding that we can give, a nominal amount. I would like to put some idle hands back into those idle lands. Within the diaspora, there's so much idle lands that we're living in our foreign countries. Our foreparents had lands that are not being utilized. Agriculture is the way forward. It brings about the opportunity for exports. It brings about the opportunity for industries in the processed food industry, and we're just not seeing it. And I think that's one way of getting the government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we can do this with the RADA program. Too many idle lands and too many idle hands. Put them together and we will see productivity. Thank you.
Okay, right. Well, thank you very much, Beverly. Very comprehensive feedback. You've certainly set a standard there for the other leads to follow. I can see that your workshop certainly had a deep look at the issues at hand, and I can imagine the conversations you had. So thanks again for your feedback there. Can I invite Dr. Sharon Wiles to give some feedback from her workshop? Dr. Wiles.
Unmute Dr. Wiles.
Oh, I do apologize. Yes, I was saying pleasant good afternoon to everyone. And thank you, Mr. Moderator, Dr. Brown, for the opportunity and also to be on this platform. You know, in our breakout session, I tell you, it was a little intense, and we wish we had more time, you know, because there were so many stuff that we wanted to get a little deeper with. And of course, our topic was, how can we build a faith base to get more people involved, facilitating the initiative and helping our brothers and sisters. Now, one of the topics we were looking at, and we respect each and everyone's opinion, and these are some of the recommendations that we discussed in our breakout session. One of the things that we discussed was we're able to connect with a different denomination. You know, of course, we're talking about faith-based. It's connecting with a different denomination. It doesn't matter who, as long as they're part of a faith base. We're talking about helping. So if we connect with the different denomination and connect with what is happening in Jamaica, you know, as Jamaica living abroad, you know, we need to be abreast and to be on top of what is happening, so we're able to strategize and be able to know what direction and how we can help. One of the things we were looking at is not only just to connect with a denomination, but to connect with a vision. To connect with a vision and to strategize and to have a form of structuring. Because if you say, okay, well, this is what we're gonna do, and there's no vision, and we just say we're gonna connect with faith-based, we first have to have a vision. What are we working towards? What's our goal? What's the aim here? What are we looking to accomplish from this vision? How can we strategize and to make it effective, you know, and to be able to structure properly and to move from point A to point B. Then we also look at establishing possibly a hub that one can, you know, where there's some form of accountability, where there's a committee formed. And again, we go back on structuring and delegate folks, for example, where as a missionary, a humanitarian activist for the last 11 years, sending stuff to Jamaica. I believe that this is very important, because a lot of times when you go to sending stuff to Jamaica and to try to, you know, implement stuff, it can be very hard when there's no structure, because then when you go there, there is so much red tapes and stuff that you have to face with. One of our persons mentioned that, you know, having a hub, which already that exists, you know, there are hubs already exist, and, you know, that seek to facilitate closer, we need to seek to facilitate closer collaboration of churches within communities, cities. Therefore, we need to undertake with an assessment as to what currently exists and link these hubs together. Because one of the things that I believe is happening is that there are a lot of people doing different stuff. Some are doing it big, some are doing it small. And if we can connect the hub, collaborate, we have 14 parishes in Jamaica, of course, and I believe they're looking to have the 15th one in Portmore, and we don't know if that's going to happen. But let's say, you know, working with the 14 parishes, with the collaborating with different faith base, with here in not just the United States, but globally, and also then connect in Jamaica. And then this will require extensive research, you know, lead by strategic plan, and also, you know, get leaders and so forth, and make it be, it's a process, of course, and it takes time, but then you have to have right leadership to also make it happen, and not just to start something, because I know there are times of cases where persons have started stuff and they stop along the way. So we need to start it and create, have an agency. One of the recommendation was to have an agency with direct contact and accountability, so that when one sends their stuff to help in Jamaica, or even have persons that you can connect with in wherever you're from, whether it be your US, Canada, different parts of the world, and then that one individual then connects with that agency in Jamaica to help, because there are different areas in which you can help. You have the youth that we want to be able to help to, you know, how we can help the youth. There's so many things, you know, they're dealing with a lot of rejections, a lot of stuff that are happening with the youth globally, and we need to be able to find means and ways how we can fix that. Build back faith. One of the recommendation is to build back faith, but where I believe that this was going, where as the faith base come together, we establish a hub, establish an agency, but we have to also build back trust, because I believe that's one of the problem that a lot of people are having, is building trust with faith, some of the faith-based leaders, faith-based organization, you know, is build back trust. And also what was mentioned is that through prayer, you know, yes, it's important that we allow God to intervene in whatever we do. You know, let's go back and touch on the youth. One of the things we have to do is help to learn how we can nullify the prediction of our youth and help to rewrite a brighter future. And how are we going to do that? Yes, we can be effective through a faith-based partnership organization, but we have to implement structure. Structure is very important. In addition to that, one of the discussion we had is to, other than the hub, is finding out the heart of those who have a mission, the heart of mission to serve. You know, a lot of times people want to serve, but they don't have the proper structure, they don't have the proper information, there's no proper training there. So we need to engage and implement programs and ways how persons who have the desire to lead and to serve and to help and to do mission, to implement ways of which they can get proper training, and that also can come from the faith base. One of the things I also want to talk about, also one of my, my suggestion too, and Bishop Roy Notice mentioned it earlier, where chaplaincy is involvement with the youth and different communities. And as an international chaplain myself, this really have me pushed into another gear to see how we can help and make a better, better Jamaica. And someone said, it's not just about Jamaica, it's also about our youth that are living overseas and maybe only hear the bad things about Jamaica, but I have a hands-on. Another one of the suggestion is having hands-on, where we lead young people especially to take a trip to Jamaica from the different faith-based organizations and do a tour of Jamaica, get a hands-on, first-hand experience. And from there, they'll have a different mindset, a different way of thinking, and then we can implement different ways of how we can help. So that is very important. I believe that we should be able to look at those other avenues and how we can help. Let me just look at one of the other things. Yeah, so mainly, I mean, our time cut short that we weren't able to get much deeper into the discussion, but the bottom line is having a hub, having spiritual guidance, you know, having more exposure of, or because we're talking about faith-based internationally, globally, is them being able to go to Jamaica, have a firsthand experience, put God first, and of course, you know, strategize, make plans, have an agency, have accountability, and make it happen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Wiles. Again, another comprehensive report. And, you know, I really am loving the feedback we're getting here in terms of the quality of, you know, recommendations that are being put forward. So let me just move to our next workshop lead, Reverend Kay Morris, for her report.
Good afternoon, Dr. Baker, and to all the folks that are here today. All protocols observed. I just want to say that as it relates to the charitable aspect of the dialogue, this is an area that I have been working on, I should say, engaged in for a very long time. And so I can relate to a lot of the conversations that came up in our breakout room. Many of the things that we have been faced with, and what I'm hearing is areas of lack of trust. People are not trusting even the church leaders. You know, they are concerned about giving money to churches who said that they're doing things or giving items to be shipped, only to find out that they have not arrived at the point of destination. I myself, as a humanitarian, have experienced that, sending items to Jamaica to a church, and with the expectation that these items would have gone to the children, the students. This had to do with education. It was confiscated, it was sold on the black market. All of those things, I had to do a lot of, what should I say, damage control to let people know that this is not who I am. You know, my organization deals fully with transparency, and this is what we are lacking in a lot of our faith-based organizations. It's transparency. Now, at the government level, if the items that have been sent, a lot of people are saying that they've sent items out, items that may have valued over $1 million, and they've been stuck on the wharf. You know, they haven't been cleared, people have lost money. And so I think one of the recommendations would be to, in order to restore integrity and accountability and trust, something has to be implemented at the government level where it is trackable, a trackable system where someone is responsible for documenting who is sending what, whether or not the faith-based organization is connected directly with this government agency, to say who is sending what in the country, who is it, who are the recipients, who is receiving these, and how is it being distributed. And there needs to be a follow-up to see how the people are faring, the recipients of these you know, donations. How is it helping the people at the community level? You know, it needs to, there's got to be a trackable system where there is governance, proper governance, where the people in the diaspora who is supporting will know that, yes, this is getting to the people. The other area that was highly talked about is the area where the youths are lacking mentorship, proper guidance. You know, they're in need of community leaders, the church to be more engaging, going back on the street corners to, you know, talk to the young men, creating more programs. And so to bring the people in the community to work together with the church, like, you know, the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, you know, boys brigades, get them engaged, create programs and invite the youths to be a part of it, where they can be trained, where there is some sort of guidance into allowing them to become leaders, giving them that mentorship, that they too can feel as if they have a level of importance, and they're included in the conversation. They can become leaders. And I was speaking with a gentleman who grew up on the streets, the rough neighborhood in Kingston. And, you know, he is giving back. he is doing things, but he's still not getting the kind of support, even from the faith-based organizations that he should get to really channel these things that he needs, computers, things like that, to the youths. Another young man talked about wanting to send items to the prison, how prisoners are being treated in the system. You know, he doesn't know where to go, how to get these items. The prisoners are being given stuff to eat with that is degradable, you know, and so this prisoner who is in the prison can come out to be a leader. You know, his prison could be his point of pain, but from the point of pain, he can be led to fulfill purpose once he gets in connection with someone in the clergy or in the in the church who speaks to him, who's speaking to his life and bring him out to be somebody different. And so the church needs to be more engaging with what's happening at the grassroots community level. You know, we need to have more mentors, you know, especially in those areas of guiding the young women, teaching them how to be women. A lot of these young women have no guidance. They go to church, and it should start in the home, but we recognize that there's a breakdown in the fabric of the family. And where else does the devil attack? Is the church, because the church is a nucleus. Without the family, the family is the nucleus of the church. Without families, you know, we have no church. And so what we have seen here is a lot of selfishness more than selflessness. Folks are thinking more about themselves. They will engage their friends or they engage someone that they know, but they're not really engaging people in the community that's doing the work to help get it done at a more better scale. And so we need to be able to create those systems where there is more accountability, there's more trust, and all of that stuff to get the work going forward and strong in Jamaica. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. K. Morris, for your report. And again, you know, some home truths there. You know, clearly, it's been a workshop where we've been very candid and open in terms of discussing the positives, but also some of the challenges as well. So thank you for that report. Now, finally, we'll be hearing from Bishop Jones, and his workshop dealt with what more can the government do to reduce red tape and barriers so as to facilitate partnerships.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brown. We kind of lost around a third or fourth time waiting for our official moderator, but but saying all of that, we got off to a robust discussion on some of the subject matter. There are people there who share their lived experience in terms of getting things done in Jamaica, i.e. somebody was explaining that they had to go to the birth certificate place and just to get a correction on their name because it's missing one letter in your name. And the rigmarole and the running around and the cost to that, they ended up being so frustrated that they didn't even know where to turn. So issues like that, issues like people make mention that you have to grease people's palm, you have to let out money in certain places to get certain things done. The idea of smooth process in doing stuff. One other person mentioned that a friend was trying to start a business in Jamaica, and for 2 years they get this run around and this rigmarole running around from one place to the next place to the next place, till the person became so frustrated that they literally forget the idea of you starting a business. So these are some of the issues that people are encountering, and there needs to be probably a smoother process in assisting people. We understand that there are different agencies, even integrated diaspora services can also help to be one of the solutions where that is concerned, as was mentioned earlier on, as part of their business forte. We were glad to have HC on with us who give a brevity and explanation as to why certain things are done and how certain things are done. And there's always a system there. But sometimes some of us don't follow the system. Sometimes people have not educated themselves enough in the process. And when the process is circumvent, then people become frustrated but there is always that part of the process. However, the general thinking is that more needs to be done, and the government definitely need to examine or re-examine some of the processes and the systems of helping people. However, we also understand that in the area where most diaspora people invest in or send things to Jamaica is through the education system, right? Or through the health system. And I understand that there are some very, very specific things that needs to be done in those areas. An issue was brought up about a lady who sent an ambulance to Jamaica. Work hard, get the money, send the ambulance to Jamaica. Ambulance on the wharf for 2 years, couldn't get cleared. And they thought it was a necessity for the ambulance to get clear in the community that needed it. However, speaking with HCR, with Lisa who intervened, that sometimes these motor vehicles have to have certain kind of specifications to them. Not only that, they must also have a plan of how they're going to be maintained, even while they're in Jamaica. So sometimes people are happy and are glad to partake in a venture in something charitable, to do something big like that. But sometimes we have to go through the proper channel, make sure that we understand the procedures and the specifications as to certain things, especially when it comes on to the medical and the educational sector. And I was told, I'm not sure if Lisa is still on, or HC could shed more light on this, that there are agencies there that have the information for people who want to invest or to send these charitable things there. HC, I'm not sure if you want to shed a little more light on that for me.
Yes, thank you very much. In terms of education, there's the National Education Trust, NET, and we can provide information on NET. And for health, there's a health and wellness organization. Lisa was the one who gave those two, and I don't have the full name, but what we can do is we can provide the information, because it is not just, put it this way, there are specifications and there are regulations that need to be followed. And unless those are done, and those kind of information you can get from the various websites, but also from your representatives in wherever you are in the world, as to how do you get specific charitable donations or contributions in Jamaica without having the issue of entry, which is what is the case for most times. So we can provide information on that. Since I have the floor, I just wanted to bring up a point that was made, I think, by the third speaker, as to how it deals with transparency and how things are distributed in Jamaica when they are being given as charitable organizations. And the point that I wanted us to think about very closely is what I will call, in my mind, from what I heard, is the creation of a mechanism by the government to go to that granular level as to distribution. And I would like us to really think through that just a little bit more, because in my mind, I'm trying to figure out how would the government do that, especially in relation to items that are given to whichever charitable organizations that the diaspora choose to give the items to. How would we as a government go through the granular level as to set up an organization to see to its distribution at the ground level? And
can I come in there, H?
Yes, please.
Okay, so most of you may or may not know, I am in the logistics forum. I'm also a trainer for Jamaica Customs. So most of the issues. I'm also a director of Operation Save Jamaica, which is also a registered charity. One of the difficulties most of the charitable support will see on importation is that we send the shipments, then we go and check what the rules are. We need to check the rules before the shipments are sent. That's usually the problem. To be honest with you, there's really no difficulty once you have checked the rules and ensure that you have a charitable entity, registered charitable entity with their requisite tax compliance certificate, who would have been able to say to the agency of government, whether it's the Ministry of Health or the Ministry of Education, that pre-assessment was done, these items are necessary, and yes, we will take them. It's no point sending something that an agency does not need, and that's usually where the problem lies. So the guidance note is that you should create a list of the items being sent to the respective agents within the government, and then they will say, yes, we need the beds, no, we don't need the chairs, and you just pull back what they don't need. If you have a private entity, however, in your communities that could use those items, and those entities are registered entities in Jamaica, then an organization like Operation Save Jamaica can be viewed as a registered charity who will oversee that the quantities that you're sending in is exactly as described on your packing list, on your bills of lading, on your airway bills, and that audit, so it is delivered to the registered entity. A lot of what we have found, and I've seen it so many times, is that someone or an organization would like to send 200 computers, but in that 200, only 195 will be going to the charity. 5 wants to be for personal family members and stuff. When you do that, those 5 becomes dutiable. So you just need to understand the rules of importation. You can't consolidate within a charity something for your personal gifts. Those are separate. You have to send them as 2 separate shipments. I know the story of the ambulance. I was very involved in that from the United Kingdom. I know the story of the blood unit, mobile unit. So they do happen, but normally it's because the due diligence was not done. And so we're being reactive. We're running after the horse to fix all the dots and cross all the T's afterwards. Those things should be done before. From this forum, if you have any difficulties, please take my name and have me as a contact. If you have questions, access to the customs, the trade board, etc., I can guide you on that. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Beverly. Thank you, HC, for your intervention. Back to you, Dr. Brown.
Thank you, Bishop Jones. And I realized you did it differently. You phoned a friend.
Yes.
You phoned a friend.
That's the way to go.
As part of your report, you phoned a friend, and your friends are quite high-powered, you know.
High-powered information, of course. Yeah.
Ambassador Miller and Beverly Johnson. Thank you, ladies, for your intervention, and thank you, workshop leads. Wow, what a day, what a webinar. I mean, I don't even know if we could call it a webinar. It has become a sort of mini conference, but one where, you know, we have been able to, in my opinion, come up with some tangible recommendations and outputs. And so in terms of next steps, as I said at the start, we didn't bring you here just to talk, right? Senator Campbell? Oh. Is the senator still with us?
One second.
Oh, senator is still on. Oh, he's there.
I think yes, Senator Campbell.
How are you?
We're fine, Senator. We could hear you in the background. I wasn't sure if you were trying to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was actually responding to a call, but your trainer who just came on, she sort of filled in where I would have been able to assist, because she spelled it out quite correctly, because a number of persons have run into difficulties because of exactly what she says. So I don't need to recite that information all again. What she said was a spot on.
Okay, well, thank you, Senator. And by the way, thank you for staying with us, because you know,
I did watch the Liverpool game in between, so.
Senator, I am not going to ask you to score. I'm not going to
For
ask
long.
That's why I'm so happy.
Okay, well, thank you, Senator. Thanks for at least sharing your football success and also, being with us on this webinar. So as I was saying, the aim now, the next steps will be for us to look at the recommendations from this workshop and work through Bishop Ransford Jones to come up with an action plan. And I think, Bishop Jones, you might end up having to pull together the speakers from this event into a kind of working group to really drill down into some of the issues that have been highlighted here. And some of them are quite serious and need to be addressed. And clearly from the responses we've received from Ambassador Miller and the other government officials, the government is ready to work with faith leaders to take this forward. So what I would say to everyone on this webinar is that this is not the end, just the beginning. We will be in touch with all of you, especially because you all registered, so we have your contact details to let you know how things are progressing and the next steps to take this forward. I would imagine that perhaps another similar session might be held at the Jamaica Diaspora Conference next year, June, which is going to be held in Jamaica. So I think that might be another forum to look at what progress will be made between now and June next year. But Bishop Ransford Jones is going to be your focal point, and we look forward to working with all of you. Now, I'm going to try and squeeze in a couple questions, and I can see Dr. Aldridge has his hands up. So before we close with the vote of thanks from Bishop Jones, let's hear what Dr. Aldridge has to say in terms of a question. Go ahead, Dr. Aldridge.
Nothing particularly profound, except a couple of minor points. One is to say that in the group I was in, the question was raised about research, mapping of what is already there before we pile in with whatever is being thought about here. So I guess I'm just raising that question to ask, whether that has already been done or that is going to be done in terms of whatever we now plan to do here. The second and last point really was from it's my question really about the extent to which being a church-led initiative, we see this as in some ways, a pretty dry socioeconomic challenge. Whereas in my experience, church people tend to, pile in with a lot of additional stuff. Quite rightly, we talk about prayer and so forth. But in my experience living in England, very often I can tell you, sometimes we get so mushy around the edges, so that the sharp point, for example, of economic development and economic planning and the rigor that is required to make it successful is sometimes replaced, in my view, by what we call prayer, which very often is a resort to God when God has already given us a green light to get on with stuff. Use your brain and come up with some concrete plans that are going to deliver economic development. And I'm not sure that we often are clear, as clear as I think is helpful if we are really going to make a difference.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Aldridge, for your intervention. I can see, well, you asked a question, and I'll just quickly respond in terms of, yes, we intend to do research on what's been done in the past. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. Clearly, for example, you could see from Reverend Bruce Fletcher's presentation that, there's a structure in place. And I think that the aim would be to enhance that structure through the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council to give faith institutions a voice as it relates to interacting and engaging the government of Jamaica. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel at all. And we want to work with faith institutions to see how we can enhance and complement whatever structure is there already. And yes, we take your point on let's get on and do it. So that is certainly the intention here, for sure. I can see Michael Campbell has his hand up. Michael, if you have a question, keep it very brief, please, but go ahead, you can take the floor.
Good evening or good afternoon, everyone. I just have a recommendation. I've listened to all of the presentations and all of the recommendations and the whole 9 yards. And one of the things that is going to work, that I believe will work, is that faith-based cannot be competitive. And see, when we become competitive, then we develop a selfish mechanism. And so God is not in it. We keep using the God rhetoric to say that, okay, then that we are to be prayerful and we're to pray and we're to seek the Lord. But when our hearts are not genuine and sincere and at the root of it all, then of course we're going to develop selfish to say that, okay, I'm trying to harvest more members than the next faith-based organization, and so God is not in it, and we are operating, and it would appear as if, yes, God is for me more than He is for the other person, but that is generally not the case. So what cannot happen as it pertains to faith-based, if they really want to make an impact in our communities around the world or wherever we go, is that we cannot be competitive, but we have to come together, be collaborative in our efforts, and know that it's in the end, it's a oneness of mind, body, and soul, regardless of our religious background, regardless of what we believe, regardless of how we feel that it should be. We should understand that it cannot be a selfish mechanism. Also, the other thing that I heard about inclusion and including, I'm not sure what we mean when we say inclusion, if we're talking across the board or what pleases us or what feels good or what we think is a moral compass to our society. But when we talk about inclusion, are we including everybody? Because everybody, the worst and best of us, need love, and faith-based that we should be looking to for the sole purpose of seeing God through our daily activities and our preaching and our singing and our recommendation should represent God, who did not die for some but died for the world. So again, faith-based have a big responsibility, and they have to look at themselves and see, what is my approach? Am I truly including everyone? Because when the Lord said, whosoever, He included me, you, and everybody that we might look at in a disdainful manner. So once again, faith-based, it cannot be a selfish motive. It has to be from a place of sincerity and truth and trust.
Thank you, Michael. Well, I'm not sure there was a question in there, but certainly your statement was heard loud and clear. So thank you for your intervention and contribution. Okay, well, just looking at time, we're gonna, they say all good things must come to an end. Although I want to emphasize, this is not the end, but it's certainly the beginning. But this webinar, certainly, we will close out with a vote of thanks from Bishop Jones. Just to say before we do that, well, after Bishop Jones does his vote of thanks, we will leave the Zoom open for a bit of networking. But what we will do, we will close the online stream, because this event was being streamed. Yeah, sorry. This event was being streamed across a range of social media platforms. So we will close those off. But you're more than welcome to remain in the Zoom for networking, so we will leave the Zoom open so that if there's someone you wanted to talk to, someone you wanted to get their contact details, things that you would normally do if this was a physical webinar, IDS has normally kept that tradition by leaving the Zoom open. So don't rush off after Bishop does his vote of thanks, because if you want to network with anyone, we will leave the Zoom open for you to do that. Okay, so let me just invite Bishop Jones to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Brown. Thank you for being an awesome moderator today. But let me also express my sincere thanks to all of you who participated in this wonderful webinar today, in partnership, our faith-based inaugural webinar. Thanks to Senator Minister Leslie Leslie Campbell, Her Excellency High Commissioner Sharon Miller, Mr. Lord Wilkes, Director of Diaspora Services Department, other members of the diplomatic corps who joined us, the clergy from various sections of various parts of the world, other faith-based leaders, charitable leaders, or featured speakers, and our moderators for the different segments, workshops that we have, other members of the GJDC who have joined us, the Integrated Diaspora Services who facilitated us. We're thankful for all of you. And we also want to give a very special thanks to Dr. Brown, who's the leader of the partnership committee. We thank all of you today for making this a success it has been. As Dr. Brown said, we certainly want to develop our strategic plan with our outcomes and deliverables so we can, as Dr. Aldred challenged us, that we have to move from faith to action. Our faith should drive our actions so that we can get some tangible things done in this regard. Thanks again, everyone. It was a pleasure hearing all the different perspectives and the challenges that we do have, but also some of the great opportunities that we see if we, as faith group, faith leaders, faith entity, collaborate together. We can do great and good things for the welfare and the well-being of the diaspora and Jamaica. Thanks again, everyone. Dr. Brown, over to you.
Yes, well, thank you, Bishop Jones, for your vote of thanks. And just to end by, just reinforcing our gratitude to everyone who participated today. Jamaica is ours. I always say we should claim it, and we are the ones who will have to find the solutions to make Jamaica a better country. So I'm really grateful for everyone who participated in the event today. It was certainly a quality event in terms of the discourse and conversation, and I believe that we have the makings of something quite fruitful as we move forward. So we're gonna, as I said before, close the live stream, and once the technical team indicate that they've closed the live stream, then we will leave the Zoom open for an informal networking session for anyone who wants to participate in that. So thank you very much, and we will be in touch with the next steps, because as I said, there's work to be done. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. God bless. Thank you.
I choose ideas because they bring our hearts back. Hearts back home, the place I know, the place I go. My heart's back.